Hey there, guys. Once again, I think it's that time to probably break down another insequential question we've all been having. And this time, it's going to be about the one thing that all LPers have never wanted to know about, yet many try to question it. And for some odd and yet unknown reason, to this day, nobody, and I do mean nobody, want to try to question it or try to take a stab at it. And it is game logic, and I can actually say that with a smile. Game logic. That's right. This is the Tenkaichi's guide to trying to understanding game logic, or actually trying to break it. Game logic. We've been trying to understand that mess for years and years and years and years. And yet, nobody can understand game logic. Take, for example, control physics. And like, you ever wonder, like, if you were to press the jump button on whatever controller you were working with, whatever game you actually had, and for some reason the game somehow doesn't get that feedback from you when you actually press another button, like the fire button or menu screen or whatever, or you bring up the menu screen, select this, but you didn't select that. You select a certain item and you didn't select that item, but you knew you selected that item, and it just doesn't respond. We can blame game logic. Or if not game logic, it's just bad programming. I don't know. I'm not a programmer, so I can't tell you. Yes, game logic. Game logic. Many of us have ran into game logic, and yet we kind of question the stupidity of said game logic. And yet, some of us just want to do a face palm. Other of us wants to do, what the fuck did we just see? And otherwise. Now, take for instance some of the very few games I can probably mention that some people are and aren't doing. I'll take the one that's most recent. Pokemon Diamond. Or, as it's originally called, Telefang. When you have bad English, I mean very bad English, I've seen plenty enough anime to know that there are some series that never had a proper subbing before. Like, I could say Cyborg 009. I have a box set of a box set of the last couple of episodes of Cyborg 009 before Ishinomori's death. And the fan sub has been done by a not so known group. Now, they do Chinese or Mandarin, and they do English subs. Some of what is being said on the bottom does not somehow match with what's being done. I mean, you'll see like 2 or maybe 3 lines of text still being flashed, And even though the characters aren't saying it, or the characters are saying it, it's like it's not inputting. It's the same thing about Pokemon Diamond. I mean, okay, normal Pokemon would be like this. You would actually be a trainer, fresh out of their own home. They reach this age, this coming of age, in which they become, in which said person, be it boy or girl, become the next challenger to take on the world. Now, they have nothing at the start, but when they go out into the world, then one of the key characters shows up from behind and says, "Hey, you can't go without this. Let me show you how it's done." And of course, it brings you to a tutorial of how the game operates and how you must do it throughout the whole game. Now, of course, this is smart game logic, because I would rather have a tutorial right before I actually even start the game. I mean, to me, excuse me. To me, it just only makes sense. If you know what you're doing, you should know about game logic. I mean, okay, the translation might be shit. A trainer could be called something else, like a tea mildew or something. I don't know. Like I said, I've seen enough to know. And I played the game myself, so I know about it. I actually know about it. But really, when you think about it, when you play a game and the story does not make sense, it is pretty good game logic is at work here. I'm not saying smart game logic, I'm talking about dumb ass game logic. I mean, there are two sides of game logic. You have the smart, and then you have the derp. Now I should talk about the smart type of game logic. Smart type of game logic would be if you were to play a new game of anything, and considering that it might be part of a series, and you might get some kind of bonus just for having it on your card, and once you access it, it's there in your files. I mean, it's there, not there in your files, but it's there while you're playing the game, or you have certain access to it. It's smart. That's smart game logic. I mean, to have, say, a certain item or weapon that can somehow break the game, but it be for your benefit, that's good game logic. Good game logic would be like, you, after all that work you've done in a previous game of the series, you'd want something a little bit more, a little something to sweeten the pot, as it were. You would want something like extra characters, like in the Dynasty Warriors series, or say another set of cards, like in No More Heroes, or maybe just a random Easter egg in, like, say, the Metal Gear Solid series. Anything like that. It's smart and doable, and it's worth, giving yourself a chance to actually beat the game. It's smart game logic. I mean, I've played many games in which you know, when you beat this time and when you beat a certain game and you somehow manage to, say, get a bonus after you've beaten the game, like, say, New Game Plus, that's good. New Game Plus is basically, you know, same game, only extra incentives. I would possibly say a good game logic, because there's good and there's bad game logic. Good game logic would mean that after you actually beaten the game the first time, the game gets a little bit simple for you to deal with. The second time you want to beat a game, like, take for instance Super Robot Tyson. In the later Super Robot Tyson games, after you've beaten the game once, you unlock another mode, an extra character, and other features. That's smart. That is, if you want to actually go through the entire game over again and just to beat this and unlock this and this and this, you can do that. That's entirely up to you. However, since I'm an LPer, I don't really want to just play a game in which I had to unlock other things over and over and over and over again. Now, unless if it was something that I can just basically blaze through with no problems, hey, I could deal with that. It's just for me, if I do it over and over and over again and I'm not getting anything out of it, not worth my time. However, if I was doing something, if I was playing a game and it's worth my time and the effort that I put into, like, if I would try to play a game for hours and hours on end, like, say, 10 plus, 20 plus hours. And I'll be honest, I actually did that once. I actually did that for about at least 5 hours, and I was younger. I was about 13, 14. That was my, hours upon hours upon hours. That was me on the weekend. Because I didn't know where to go, had nothing to do. I had taken care of everything at school. So what did I do? The only thing I could do, play a game for like hours and hours on end, mainly an RPG. And I would be like 50% through the game until my eyes would get watery. So usually that'd be it for me. But yet, you unlock certain things, the little things, items that somehow make you stronger, can somehow make everything seem a little bit more easier. It's good. It's good because, you put in so many hours and minutes over a certain game, you should get a little bit of incentive. Especially if you unlock certain characters throughout the game. Yeah. I like that. It's just like that for Warriors of Orochi. You unlock certain characters throughout the entire rest of the game. And the more characters you run across, the more characters you may get a chance to unlock just because you're going through each stage. Whether it's a stage that deals with the past to a stage that will alter the future, something like that. That's all that game's about. I mean, there are plenty of other ideas for good game logic, but it's something that cannot be explained, but I can try to explain it in the best way possible. I think I've said enough for good game logic. Now for the bad game logic. Most of us know what bad game logic is. Now, as of well, as of recent, I can definitely say this. The last stream I went to was Big Fatty Plus's stream, and in his stream he was playing Outcast. I think I know. I think you know where I'm going to go with this. Even, even if it wasn't, even if there was a game that is being done in a stream or a game that is being LP'd, game logic still exists in the dumbest way possible. Like, for instance, in a racing game. Um, Game logic states that you have 60 seconds, 60 minutes. 60 seconds or 60 minutes? I think it's 60 minutes. Anyway, game logic, game logic states that you have about, say, 60 minutes to get through a course. Halfway through the course, you see rocks, oil slicks, and countless other things. And I'm excluding the cars because the cars are going to be there, but I'm talking about the little things that will cause you to lose control and slightly your peace of mind as you're going through this. Now, as you're going through this, you lose time. And the worst kind of games are the ones that give you a penalty if you actually run into something. Like you get minus 5 seconds off your time. Or minus 5 seconds, minus 10 seconds. And it'll cost you time just because you ran into it. Bad game logic. Another thing is, in RPGs, certain RPGs, to be quite honest, action RPGs. In certain action RPGs, you run across a certain puzzle. What was I talking about? Oh, yes. Action RPGs. Action RPGs state that that you run across a certain puzzle. A certain puzzle that requires some kind of code. And in order to find this code, you have to go throughout the entire labyrinth to find the X numbers of this code. Like, say, you have to find 4 different digits that will unlock this puzzle. This one puzzle in which you have to break in order to continue throughout the rest of the game. Now, I'm not saying it's stupid, but the fact that you have to go through this, through, let's say, the four tunnels or 4 corners of the labyrinth just to find these 4 digits. It's good, but come on now. I got something worse. Take, for instance, the worst I can possibly come up with is The Legend of Dragoon. Now there's a certain section in Legend of Dragoon in which you have to find a combination of 4. It's a 4-digit code, and you have to find the right combination. But the niche is, it's not the same combination every time you play it. It's something totally generated. And you have to figure it out within, let's say, I think 10 tries. and then after you've tried your 10th, then it locks back up, and four different numbers show up like that. And say you try to look it up on GameFAQs, you can't, and GameFAQs couldn't even help because it just says, oh well, since they're randomly generated, it's kind of like it's trying to deal with getting the best treasure of the game worth your sanity, worth your time, worth losing your brain over those, those little increments of your brain. Is it really worth losing? Not to me, it isn't. I mean, I used to play that game. I used to play the hell out of that game, and I just kind of lost it because I'm like, what the fuck are you supposed to do in this game? And in that one area, I just kind of felt like, okay, if I do this, I can get this and this and this and this and this, but it'll take time and effort, and time is something, back then I had a lot of time, but now I don't. Game logic, in the sense that, certain puzzles have to be done a certain way, understandable, but when a random generator is involved, that's real bad. Real bad. There are so many things that I can pretty much try to mention within game logic, dictation, but there's a lot of stupidity involved with game logic. That is mainly like 80% involved game logic. 80% of the game has logic that does not compute with the player, because we're always going through the game, and every little bit of that game, there's always something stupid that the programmers did that would possibly lead gamers and LPers to that one small question: what the fuck? I mean, I know I'm breaking that rule that we never question game logic, but yet, how am I breaking that rule if I'm the one who's constantly saying, no, we should never question game logic? Game logic is really not to be questioned. It's to be worth looking at. You play a game, you find something stupid in it. The only game I could say is worth looking at and just saying game logic does not compute for this game would happen to be, well, Panic. And I will get to that in a little bit. Panic, the only game in which everything is just thrown out the window, and is basically a game worth mentioning because we actually did Panic once. When RCO was just a two-man party. Instead of a four-man party, it was a two-man party. Back in the days in the original RCO. Now it's expanded. When it was just me and Sheena, we actually did a game. And as a challenge, if we ever saw something stupid, something crazy, something that made no sense whatsoever, we had to take a shot. And one of those shots, the shots on my end was hot sauce, and I believe it was cherry Coke. I think it was Dr. Pepper and some hot sauce. and I had to actually drink it from the bottle. On her end, she had to. It was vinegar and something else. I think it was to her. I think it was cherry coke and vinegar. I'm not certain, but we had to take a shot every time we ran across something just totally out there. This defined game logic as most weirdest point in time when you have two people taking on one game that applies to no game logic. No game logic whatsoever. And yet, when you really look at it, you're thinking, what the hell is going on? That only means one thing. It only means that when you play a certain game and it does not make sense, it will drive you to do the most craziest of things. Aside from that, as I mentioned before, game logic is as broken and weird and unexplainable as most things in this world. So, what's to say about game logic? There are plenty of things to say about game logic, but I only have so much to share about the guide to game logic. The only thing we have to do is just say, screw it, whatever it is, and just go with it. So with that, yeah. If you have any comments or feedback about game logic, please do so and share with the rest of us because, hey, many of us who has ever actually played many video games will want to know why it exists, and many of us just don't want to know why we question it. But I dare to question it because I care. Anyway, this is the Tenkaichi of gaming. And with that, I had to say, Tenkai Muso! Later.